Got a full week of training this week. We're going to be on the mountain bikes, which is a bit of a rarity, but I've got my hands on one. So towards the end of the week, we got a 3-day stage race. They're not very common, the gravel stage races, but this one consists of a 90-kilometer time trial. We've got a 170-kilometer gravel race the next day with about 1,000 meters of climbing, and then the day after that, we've got a 70-kilometer gravel race with 2 time segments. It's about 700-800 kilometers from where we are in Girona. This is going to be the first race on the calendar for me, so it'll be interesting to see where my legs stand at the moment. We're not quite sure after all the training that I've been doing, so getting the first one out the way, let's go. We are back. We are back training our technical skills today. We actually got some of the best mountain bikers in the game to roll with. Huck Peterson, Luke Lamperti, Mike Garrison all ripped me an absolute new one on today's ride. And I organized this ride, the disrespect. 2.5 hours on the mountain bikes. Started off beautiful day, riding the hills, up and down, some pretty intense routes. I went over the bars once. We actually bumped into Taylor Finney in his studio, which was actually pretty sick. That wasn't before pretty decent tumble. I went flying. I'm pretty sure Garrison and Luke Lamperti knew what they were up to here. Peterson, outrageously good bike handler, to be fair. Wheelie game on point as well, same as Garrison and Luke. Honestly, doing it on a mountain bike kind of builds your confidence way more on the descents and on the gravel, because it just allows you to do the course but faster, or at least the terrain at a faster speed, so that your body can kind of keep, it just gets you used to the speed, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, some of the bits that we were trying to do were quite intense.
Can't park there, mate.
Yeah, anything on the Traka route is a whole lot easier than that. So you're really never that far from Girona as well, which is pretty sick, so you can always just descend. But we did get caught in an almighty storm. It doesn't really rain here much, but when it rains, it pours, and it certainly did, and we froze all the way home. So regardless of the crash, I'll definitely be back on the mountain bike more. Most people probably don't know this, but I actually grew up racing XC mountain biking, so I actually got some decent technical skills, but it just takes some brushing up, really. When you start competing in mountain biking, but you live in London, you kind of realize that it's quite hard to keep up with people who live in like Scotland and Wales. I've been having a look into their metrics, and like 50% of the people that watch these videos, they don't even follow the account. So I don't really want to be one of those guys that says like and subscribe, but well, we got Puck to say it for me today. So
you guys all need to like and subscribe. Do it now.
You know what to do. Another mountain bike ride for the cards. I descended 1,000,000 times better than I did yesterday. I don't know, just maybe familiarity with the bike. Doing the trails, like the same ones that we did last time, just all over again. And it worked out, and we had a pretty good day. Met for a coffee at the start.
Mate, he's gonna start ripping that heel nails, man.
he's gonna line up on the stairs and
He's gonna do a stair run.
Tran Montana, shout out to them. Very sweet space for a coffee. On the ride we had Luke Garrison, because he missed his train and therefore didn't make his flight back to Atlanta, so he hopped on the ride, and Clara, and then me. And we bopped it out. Washed the bikes at the car wash afterwards. Shout out to Garrison. And I did some efforts whilst I was on the ride. Just do these like activation efforts, and basically they just make like, they just get your muscles used to like firing on all cylinders for the day of the race. Tomorrow we've actually got 8 hours of driving to this race. So today we're just gonna be packing, prepping. That is what we're gonna do. What the hell is this race that we're going to? It's Tienes de Campo. It's a 3-day stage race, about 2-3 hours from Madrid. There's a time trial. There's the 160-kilometer gravel race the next day, and then I believe there's a 70 or 80-kilometer race afterwards. So this is going to be great training preparation for some of the other races that are coming up. So just looking forward to getting stuck into some racing. Let's go. We made really good timing. It's absolutely cooking. This part of Spain is particularly barren. Definitely doesn't look like they get much precipitation. Shout out Vertio for lending me the car. If you want to rent a Vertio car, I have some discount. They're great cars. They work really well. They're always in great condition. And they've been great support of VC Let's Get It. So shout out to them. Really good people over there. It's now the morning of the time trial. I've had a look at the course. It's like a 19-kilometer course. We've had a really decent breakfast / brunch. We did actually have to sleep in a little bit last night because I've had pasta for sort of breakfast / lunch. My last meal will be anywhere between 3 to 2 hours before the race. We need to go there and have a little recon of the actual course. So we also need to pick up some groceries and some other bits and bobs that we forgot along the way. It's just always the case really when you're on the road. So
Horrific. Tienes de Campo, stage 1. Lord, 90k time trial. I was actually going pretty good for the first bit, and I took a wrong turning. It didn't dip my morale at all, but I got a bug in my eye like maybe 5k later, and my eye is still watering. I don't know if you can see this, but it's like incredibly red. That was actually pretty horrific, and I could barely see where I was going at some points. I literally went into this corner with my eyes closed. Anyway, glad that's done. I think tomorrow we just bumped into some guy called Jordan, and we gave him some stickers and he put it on the frame, which was sick. We got tons of flies in my mouth when I was doing that thing. Yeah, I think the hardest bit is going to be getting up tomorrow, so we'll lock in for that. Nathan's off in a bit. It's like a proper TT setup, like there people are coming down the ramp, and we got a couple friends rolling off the ramp later. My eye will stop watering. This would be great. It's literally a joke how much my eye is watering right now. It looks like I'm crying. Water tears. Anyways, ciao.
This is day 2 of Tienes de Campo. Started off in the morning, mega early morning, except I did forget the gels. It was no problem because Sarah and Don were going to go back and get them and then give them to me at the feed station. Not that we got that far. We got to the race. I hopped the barrier to get to the front of the queue, which is a pretty common thing I do actually in the races because people line up at these races like mega early, and quite honestly I'm never usually the first one there, so my chance of getting a good spot is just to do this. Yeah, we get going. Locked in for the first 20-30k. First group got away. Scarbu and Nathan were in my group for a bit, and then they attacked across and my legs absolutely exploded getting halfway across. I found my people, found my group. It was a little bit chaotic. We went through some pretty gnarly mud sections. Get through this narrow sort of double track section. Double track is when there's just like one track and another track, and the group I was in was pretty big at this point. I was moving up. We hit like this tarmac section. We picked up a bunch of speed, and then bang, there's like bodies on the floor. There's like 8-9 people on the floor, and I'm piling into them. Front wheel ends up going and I land in a ditch, and I've like completely reopened an enormous scab on the left hand side of my leg. Then I immediately knew that my knee was pretty banged, but kind of semi hit my head. But I got off and checked my helmet and made sure that my head was alright, which it was. And there's still a couple guys. There's one guy definitely broke his collarbone on the side of the road, and there's a couple people looking after him, so I started to make my way along the race, but I could tell instantly that my knee wasn't good. So
it's not looking good. It's not looking good. I crashed really fucking hard. Coming into this like slight mud section, 3, 4, 5, 6 people kept coming down in front of me, and I just had nowhere to go, and I completely fell into a ditch. And I've landed on my left hand side once again. I've ripped open my cut. My kneecap feels like it's been moved around a bit, but we're chugging on. Let's say I'm gonna get to the first feed station and see how I feel, then take it from there. Ciao. Right, the situation is, I can't really push over 200 watts without my knee hurting, and that's not really a good sign. I actually never fucking do this. We might have to call it. I've got a long season ahead of me, and it's just not worth the risk. Like, I mean, I could probably struggle through the next 100 and whatever K, but I don't think it's worth it. I think I could do myself more damage here. So I'm gonna find the aid. I think this might be it. All right, we'll see what ends up. I think I'm gonna call it though, boys. Ciao.
I actually went to the next aid station and helped feed Nathan, a couple of the athletes, and get some content there. So I went back to the Tienes de Campo where the start and finish was, and I went and became the local legend at the first aid station, which was which I'm pretty proud of. They checked me out. We actually needed the doctor there, but the doctor was actually out there on the circuit behind the ambulances, like making sure that other people. But I think there were quite a few crashes because honestly, the doctor was nowhere to be found for hours and hours and hours. And so we waited around and watched the finish of the race. Piotr won, which was sick, and 2 gravel groove riders came in afterwards. And Scarbu and Nathan rolled in a little bit after. A pretty savage day out there, if I'm really honest.
Let's get it tomorrow.
I'm just gonna rest my knee for the moment. Tomorrow, we'll see if we start tomorrow. Quite honestly, the swelling has kind of gone down now, which is pretty sick. You know, my knee was like way bigger than the other one. I'm gonna risk it if I don't feel like it's worth it. We'll just wake up and see how we feel tomorrow, whether we ride or not. Ciao, see you tomorrow. I didn't start stage 3. It was a bit of a no-brainer if I'm really whether I was gonna start or not. We didn't start. We still ripped over to the race. The vibes are pretty chill. Everyone, I think, is a bit cooked after a couple days of racing, and 3-day stage races are not really that common. There's maybe a couple of these a year, so a good test of people's like resistance to fatigue. Quite honestly, most of the gravel races are just 1-day occurrences. Piotr was the marked man of the day. This day was 2 time segments. I believe they're around 20k each, so both of those segments were going to be raced flat out, which ended up being quite dangerous. Waited at the feed station after the first time segment.
You don't like segment racing? Oh well, just as well you're in a segment race, aren't you?
We were kind of waiting for Nathan to come through, but everybody else had sort of gone through, rested, chatted after the first segment. No casualties, except we didn't see Nathan, and we were kind of waiting around for him a little bit just to see where he had gone, and he just never arrived. Yeah, we were just like, where the hell is my man? So we went back to the start and finish and just waited for everybody, and transpires that actually Nathan was in the hospital. He got a bug to the eye, but this one was a bit more serious, probably a bit larger than the bug that went in my eye, and his left eye was just balling out anyway. But we came through to the finish and it was just carnage. It was just bodies everywhere. There's people coming in and drips and drabs, and there were people that started to come through and they were like holding their arm like they'd just broken their collarbone, and there was a guy that came through with his rear stay missing. The rear stay is like the rear triangle in the bike. That kind of puts it was just completely missing. It transpired there'd been an enormous pileup, and one of the guys, Toby, had ridden into a pothole, completely flipped himself over, landed on his face and broken his arm, and then a bunch of guys piled into the back of them. Apparently they were hitting this sector at just like full gas. The whole thing was like basically downhill. So semi a recipe for disaster here. We actually planned to stay the Sunday evening, but we realized we had enough time to make it back to Girona, so we ripped an 8-hour drive all the way back to G-Town. Would I want to drive that distance again? Probably not. Was it an eventful 3 days? Absolutely. Did we get it? We kind of did. And with that, that's a wrap for this week. Let's go.